Sometimes in life, you're going to feel like a circular peg trying to be fit into a square hole. In other words, it's really hard to fit in. I can't tell you why. I can't tell you how. I can't explain it, but there's some seasons in life where you, as a person who has dreams and goals and aspirations, it just is not going to connect. And you're not going to fit in anywhere you go. But that's a good thing. Feels lonely, feels like a bad thing. I promise you, it really is a good thing. And if you are that person today that doesn't feel like they're fitting in, that feels different, that feels like they're an outsider, that feels like they're orbiting around all the good stuff that's happening, trust me, this episode's for you, because I promise you, by the end of this, you're going to have a really different perspective on what's actually happening. I'm excited to do this today. Welcome to the narrative of Naz Nassim. Let's get this show on the road. And we are back with another episode of the narrative of Naz Nassim with me, your host, Naz Nassim, where we're here to give you 10 to 15 minutes of weekly motivation so that you can become the person that you want to become. Now, ladies and gentlemen, sometimes you just feel like you don't belong. Now, here's what I need you to understand. We are talking to one group of people today. I'm going to first tell you the people we're not talking to, okay? If you are a cantankerous person who is confrontational and who likes to stir up drama and gossip, and if everywhere you go, you leave a path of destruction, probably not the episode for you, because we're not talking about people that like to stir the pot. We're not talking about people that are culture killers. That's not what we're talking about today. And if that is you, please finish watching the episode, but also go seek therapy immediately. But that's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about the people who are doing all they can to try to fit in, to try to be a part of the mold, but they just can't get it right. It just seems like there's a disconnect here. And that's the problem sometimes when you have a dream and you're trying to be great. There are going to be times where you just can't fit into the societal parameters and standards. Friends seem to not want to be around you sometimes. It's the coworkers, bosses, family. It just seems like you're on an island alone. You're on an island alone. And here's what I learned, okay? When that season happens, we do everything and exhaust everything to try to belong somewhere. And guess what? There's no problem with belonging. That's a human fundamental need. Everyone needs to belong to something. Everyone needs to belong to someone, some kind of ideal. Everyone needs a tribe to be a part of. That is not the problem. The problem is that sometimes in the season where you're trying to focus on belonging, you're really supposed to be building. I'm in a season right now where I'm trying to focus on building instead of belonging, because I understand that I'm about to build the place where I belong. And that is what we are talking about today, because some of you don't understand that the solitude you feel is so that you can become and focus on being the solution to the problem that God has placed in your life for you to fix. That's what it is. Some of you don't understand that this time, while it feels like the worst of times, is the best of times, because this is the genesis of greatness. This is the epicenter of where everything is going to happen, because now you've been presented with a problem. You don't fit in with the certain company culture. You don't fit in within a certain mold set or a certain rule set. You don't have a seat at the table. So the problem is this. The question is, what are you going to do? Well, God had put that there for a reason. There's something he wants you to change. He wants you to shift, and you won't do it unless you are sitting on the outside and you feel the pain of sitting on the outside. Here's one of the things that I've always said. One of the worst superpowers or abilities I believe was ever created is that there's certain people in comic books that don't feel pain. And I'm not talking about, their body can heal and they're invincible. No, they're perfectly human. They just don't feel pain. Why would I want that? Yes, pain doesn't feel good, but what is the purpose for pain? Pain alerts the body that something's wrong. Can you imagine if I was to break my ankle and not feel pain and try to keep walking on it? I would be damaging the ankle beyond repair to the point where it's absolutely crushed and now I can't use it. But if I have that pain receptor there firing off on all cylinders, I'm going to know to go to the doctor. That's what you need to understand. Sometimes you won't address the problem until you feel the pain. So sometimes God is going to put you in a situation where you don't fit in. You can't seem to acquiesce to this mold that people want you to be a part of. And God is going to make that feel painful because everybody wants to belong. Everybody wants to have friends. Everybody wants to be a group. But there's something that God has put inside of you that he wants you to build. And now that those pain receptors of feeling alone are firing off, you now have the ability to figure out, what is it that he wants me to do? Where can I focus? Where can I put my energy? What can I do to make sure that I'm doing what is proper and necessary to help build the thing that God has called me to build? Understand, ladies and gentlemen, that solitude isn't fun. It really isn't. I don't have a way for you to not feel alone. I don't. The only way I have is Jesus. That's it. And this isn't a Christian podcast, but I'll tell you, I ain't afraid to talk about what I believe in. You know, it's God. That's it. You know, you got to pray. But I'm going to tell you too, even in your prayers, you're not going to feel it every time. You're not going to feel his presence every time. Whoever told you that's a lie. Doesn't mean that he's not there, but you're just not going to feel it all the time. But you got to change your perspective. See, if you change your perspective on it, that's how you can be successful. That's how you can be more disciplined. If you can stop trying to always feel the warm and fuzzies and just understand that it's going to be a little cold, it's going to feel a little distant in this season, it is what it is. You put your bootstraps on, buckle up and do what you got to do. Put the boots on the ground. Because pretty soon you're going to build a place that was better than where you were trying to belong anyway. You're going to be able to sit at a table that's serving food that you can actually eat. That's not poisonous to you. That's not cancerous to you. You're going to be able to be in an environment that's going to encourage you. And you are going to be the one that's going to build that, but you gotta feel the pain. You gotta understand that. That's just how it is. You gotta feel the pain. You gotta understand that this lonely season is not for your detriment, but for your benefit. So the question is, okay, what steps do we need to change our perspective? Okay, I think it's very easy. There's 3 steps you can do. You have to identify the problem. What's the purpose? What's the problem? Why does God have me in this season? Okay, you need to figure out what is the thing that's nagging at you. Okay, you need to figure out, what about it? What about that culture? What about that mindset? What about that situation? What bothers you, okay? Because once you can identify the problem, then you can identify your purpose in the matter. Okay, so here's the overlying problem. What is my purpose here, though? Okay, we talked about the build, but the build what specifically? Okay, what's the counteraction to this? Because, you know, for everything in the universe is opposite and equal reaction. What is my opposite and equal reaction for this? How am I going to turn this situation into not just my favor? Because you need to understand that this thing that God is using to build or start to build isn't for you. It's for millions of people coming after you. So the question is, what am I going to do? What is the purpose? Why does he have me here at this time? What is my answer to the problem? Okay. So once you figure out the problem, okay, you got to figure out your purpose. Then you need to figure out your place in the matter. Okay, your place, and not just your place, but what your talents and where you're going to place them to be. Because then you need to figure out, what do I have on the inside of me that correlates with this purpose that's going to help solve this problem? What talents have I been blessed with? What mind have I been gifted with? What physical attributes have I been gifted with that's going to allow me to take the steps to eventually solve the problem? And so when you find out the problem, your purpose, in the place where you're going to put your talents, then you can finally change your perspective. And then once you change your perspective, you can understand that this is probably the best season you've ever been in. And guess what? Not everybody goes through this season. Okay? Everybody's lonely, but not everybody's lonely with a purpose. Only the greats have to figure this out. And I believe the person watching this clip on this podcast, you're going to be one of the greats. So now once you change your perspective, you have to understand that this season of loneliness and solitude is about to be the genesis of a revolution, of an idea that's going to bring millions in. So much so that if you knew the things that were in store for you and the things you were going to do, shoot, you might even thug it out being lonely just a little longer. Because what's on the horizon is so incredible, you can't even fathom it. Listen, I believe that you are worthy of friendship, love, community, and fellowship. I do. I don't just believe it, I know it. If you are a human being breathing, you are worthy of that. And if anyone tells you that greatness is always lonely, they're lying to you. That's not a way to live. You don't always have to live alone. But sometimes it is. And sometimes in those seasons, we have to do our due diligence to keep our head focused, our head up, and make sure that we are doing what we need to do, because what is it worth to sit here and go through the seasons of loneliness and not get something out of it, and not get a story out of it, and not actually do something with this negative period of time that we fought through? What's the point of just wallowing in our loneliness? There is none, because we're better than that. So I need you to understand that you are in a time period where you are supposed to be building rather than belonging, because you are about to build something, like I said before, that is better than the place that you were trying to belong. Believe that today. You are the solution to a problem. And so God's allowing those pain receptors to go off so that now you can attack it full force with a zeal and a passion and excitement, knowing that you can accomplish the impossible. I believe in y'all today. I truly believe in you all today, and I truly believe that things are going to change for you in the not too distant future. And you're going to look back on this time period and be very grateful for it. I love y'all. As always, thank you for joining. We like to keep it short and sweet here, but please, at any point in time, let me know. If you need anything else, go to the comment section, and I can't wait to see you next week for the narrative of Now Is Not Seen. Let's get after it.